Found this behind the drop box. Somebody's looking for it.
You found this outside? That's right. You should talk to Mr. Blake. Daniel, you're a lifesaver. We've been turning this branch upside down.
It was just sitting there behind the drop box. Of course it was.
You didn't open it, did you? Count it? No shame. No. Didn't open it.
No, sir. Zipper stayed shut.
It's not mine to open.
And you were alone when you found it? Why? No reason. Get home to that little girl of yours.
The deposit bag sat on the passenger seat like a stone that would not stop pushing down on his chest. $9,000 in cash and checks, zippered tight, tagged with a branch number that was not his to carry. Daniel Reyes found it wedged behind the drop box on a cold Thursday evening, when the streetlights had just begun to hum, and the cold came off the car window against his knuckles like a hand. He had exactly $41 in his own account and rent due in 3 days. No one had seen him pick it up. No one would ever know. That was the terrible arithmetic of it. He sat in the parking lot with the engine ticking as it cooled, and he thought of his daughter's shoes, the ones with the hole worn through the left toe. Then he zipped his worn jacket to the collar, tucked the bag under his arm, and walked back toward the doors. His name was Daniel, and for 2 years he had been a courier for Meridian Savings, driving a route between the downtown branch and 3 suburban offices, ferrying sealed pouches of money that were never his and never would be. It was not much of a job. It paid barely enough, but it was honest work, and honest work was the last thing he had left that still felt like something Grace would have been proud of. Grace had been gone 22 months. Pneumonia that started like a cold and turned, in the space of 9 days, into a hospital room and a hallway and a doctor with kind eyes who did not know how to say the words. Daniel remembered the way the fluorescent lights buzzed in that hallway. He remembered holding Ellie, who was 4 then, and telling her that Mommy was going to be a star now, one of the bright ones, and Ellie had asked which one, and he had pointed at nothing in particular because the ceiling was between them and the sky. Now Ellie was 6. She had her mother's stubborn chin and her mother's way of humming while she colored, and she was, as far as Daniel was concerned, the only reason the sun bothered to come up. They lived in a second-floor apartment above a laundromat, where the floor was always faintly warm from the dryers below, and the whole place smelled of clean cotton and cheap soap. It was small. The radiator knocked at night like something was trying to get in, but Ellie had a window that looked out on a maple tree, and in the fall, that tree went the color of fire, and she would press her hand to the cold glass and say it looked like the sky was on the ground. Daniel worked. That was the shape of his life. He worked, and he came home, and he made dinner from whatever the sales rack offered, and he read to Ellie until her eyes went soft, and then he sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and a shoebox of bills and did the same math over and over, hoping the numbers would come out different. They never did. The rent was $900. His paycheck, after taxes and the gas he put in the car himself, came to a little more than that, and then there was food and electricity, and the medicine Ellie needed for her asthma, the small blue inhaler he would have sold his own hands to keep full. Some months he made it. Some months he did not, and he learned the particular shame of the landlord's slow knock, 3 times, patient and awful. So when he found that deposit bag behind the drop box, he knew exactly what $9,000 could do. He knew it the way a drowning man knows the shape of the surface above him. And he handed it back anyway. He walked into the downtown branch that Thursday evening, past the velvet ropes and the potted ferns, and he set the bag on the counter in front of the assistant manager, a young man named Perry who blinked at it like it was a snake. "Found this, behind the drop box outside," Daniel said. "It's got a branch tag on it. Figured somebody's looking for it." Perry weighed the bag in his hand, and his face went carefully blank, the way a face goes when a person has just realized they are standing near a problem much larger than themselves. "You found this, outside. That's right. You should talk to Mr. Blake." And that was the first time Daniel felt the cold move up the back of his neck. though he could not have said why. Because Blake, the branch manager, had come out of his glass office already smiling, already walking toward them with his hand out, and there was something in the smile that did not fit the size of the moment. A man does not smile like that at a returned bag. He smiles like that when a plan is finally moving. "Daniel," Blake said, warm as a heat lamp, "you're a lifesaver. We've been turning this branch upside down." It was just sitting there, behind the drop box. Of course it was. Blake took the bag. His thumb passed over the zipper. Of course. "Well, let me walk you out." Blake was the kind of man who wore good shoes and let you see them. He was 40-something, trim, with a haircut that cost more than Daniel's weekly groceries, and he had a way of standing just a little too close, of putting a hand on your shoulder and squeezing once, gently, like he owned the shoulder and was letting you borrow it. He had been branch manager for 3 years. Everyone said he ran a tight ship. Everyone said the numbers at his branch were the best in the region. What no one said, because no one knew, was that the numbers at Blake's branch were the best in the region because Blake had spent those 3 years quietly bleeding it. A little here, a little there. Deposits that came in slightly larger than they were recorded, the difference sliding into an account that did not have his name on it. Fees that appeared and disappeared. A skim so thin and so patient that the ledgers still balanced if you did not look too hard. And no one at corporate had any reason to look too hard, because Blake's branch made money. But the auditors were coming. Daniel did not know that either. The auditors were coming in 11 days, a full internal review, and Blake had a hole in his books he needed to explain, and a man in a corner does not think about right and wrong. He thinks about who he can put between himself and the fall. The deposit bag was not lost. Blake had planted it. $9,000 pulled from the vault against a falsified withdrawal, set behind the drop box where the courier would find it, so that when it vanished, there would be a name attached to its vanishing. A courier with money trouble. A courier who was the last person to touch it. A tidy story with a tidy villain. And the villain would not be Blake. Except Daniel had brought it back. That was the thing Blake had not planned for. He had built a trap for a desperate man and forgotten that desperate and dishonest are not the same word. So he stood in that lobby with the bag in his hand and the smile stuck to his face like a label that would not peel. And behind his eyes, a new plan was already forming. Because the money was still gone from the books whether Daniel took it or not. And the story still needed a villain. And here was the villain. "Say," Blake said, walking Daniel toward the doors, one hand on that borrowed shoulder. "You didn't happen to open it, did you? Count it? No shame if you did. Just for the paperwork." "No, sir. Zipper stayed shut. It's not mine to open." "Right. Right." A pause. "And you were alone when you found it." Daniel stopped at the door. Something in the question. "Why?" "No reason." The smile again. "Just glad it's back. You have a good night, Daniel. Get home to that little girl of yours." Daniel had never told Blake he had a little girl. He drove home slower than usual that night, the heater in the old car rattling out a thread of lukewarm air, and he could not have named the feeling in his chest. It was not fear, exactly. It was the way the air feels before a storm, when the birds go quiet and the light turns green, and you know without knowing that something is coming. Ellie was at the window when he came up the stairs, her breath fogging the glass, and she flung the door open before he reached it. "Daddy, I lost a tooth." She held it up on her palm like a jewel, small and white and impossibly precious, and Daniel forgot the cold in his chest entirely. He got down on one knee in the doorway and admired it with the seriousness the occasion deserved. "That is a fine tooth," he said. "That is the finest tooth I have ever seen. Will the tooth fairy come?" And there it was, the small knife that lived inside every ordinary day. The tooth fairy left money. He had, at that moment, $41 and a jar of coins. But he smiled and told her yes, of course. The tooth fairy always came, and that night after she slept he slid a folded dollar under her pillow and took the tooth and set it in the empty aspirin bottle where he kept the other 3, the ones she had lost before, because he could not bring himself to throw away any small piece of her. He sat at the kitchen table with the shoebox of bills and did his math. The numbers did not come out different. They never did. But he had brought the bag back, and when he thought about that, something in him stood up a little straighter, even alone, even at midnight, even with the radiator knocking like a fist. He did not know that 11 miles away, in a house with good shoes lined up by the door, Blake was sitting in front of his own computer, deleting things, rewriting things, building a version of Thursday evening in which a courier named Daniel Reyes had been seen loitering near the vault, in which the missing money and the missing courier were the same story. Blake was patient. Blake was careful. He had gotten away with being careful for 3 years, and he saw no reason it should stop now. He was wrong about that, but it would take time to prove him wrong. Truth is like that. It does not run, it walks. It takes the long road and it does not hurry. And to the man who is waiting to be believed, every step of it is agony. The first knock came on a Monday. 2 people from corporate, a man and a woman in gray suits, waiting by the loading door when Daniel pulled up for his morning route. They asked him to come inside. They asked him about Thursday evening. They asked him in voices that were very polite and very cold, whether he had at any time been alone with the contents of the vault, and Daniel felt the floor tilt under him, because he understood, all at once, what was happening. "I found a bag behind the drop box," he said. "I brought it inside. I gave it to Mr. Blake. That's all that happened." "There's no record of a bag being returned," the woman said. "Ask Perry, the assistant manager. He was standing right there." Mr. Perry says he doesn't recall. And Daniel understood something else then, watching the woman's face. Perry was afraid. Perry worked for Blake, and Blake signed Perry's reviews. And a young man with his own rent to pay learns quickly which memories are safe to have. Daniel did not blame him. That was the worst of it. He could not even find the anger, because he knew exactly what fear did to a person, how small it made your world, how it shrank everything down to the single question of survival. They suspended him that morning, pending investigation. No pay. He drove home at 10 in the morning on a Monday, which he had never once done, and the streets looked strange and wrong in the daylight, empty in a way they never were in the dark. He parked below the laundromat and sat in the car and put his hands on the wheel and made himself breathe. Rent was due in 2 days. He had $41. He had a daughter upstairs at school who believed the tooth fairy always came, and a jar of coins, and a suspension without pay, and a story going around a bank in which he was a thief. He went upstairs. He made himself a cup of coffee he did not drink. He looked at the phone, and he thought about who he could call, and the list was short, because grief has a way of clearing a room. The friends he and Grace had known as a couple had drifted, the way they do, until the invitations stopped coming, and he stopped noticing they had stopped. There was his sister 2 states away, but she had troubles of her own. There was no one, really. There was Ellie, and there was the worn jacket on the hook by the door, and there was the truth, which no one seemed to want. He put on the jacket. He did not know where he was going. He just could not sit in that warm, small apartment for 1 more minute, with the knowledge that a man in good shoes had decided to hand him the fall for something he had never touched. That jacket. Grace had bought it for him the winter before Ellie was born. Brown canvas with a corduroy collar, and it had been handsome once. Now the cuffs were frayed, and the collar had gone soft, and there was a patch on the elbow where he had mended it himself, with clumsy stitches, because Grace had always meant to teach him, and never got the chance. He wore it every day. Ellie liked to burrow into it when he picked her up, pressing her face against the front of it, and once she had said it smelled like Daddy, which was the highest thing anyone had ever said about him. It was not much of a jacket, but it was the one Grace had chosen, and putting it on was, in some small way, a way of asking her what to do. He went to the branch, not to make a scene. He told himself he only wanted to look Blake in the eye. He wanted the man to say it to his face. He parked across the street and watched the doors for a long time, and he saw customers come and go, and he saw Blake through the glass in his glass office, on the phone, gesturing, smiling that smile. And Daniel understood that a man like that never stopped smiling, because a man like that had learned that the smile was the trick. It was the thing people trusted instead of the truth. He did not go in. In the end, he could not make himself walk through those doors as a suspect, past the tellers who had said good morning to him for 2 years and now looked away. He drove home, and that, he would think later, was the moment the long, slow walk of the truth began, though he could not see it yet, though it looked from where he stood like nothing at all. Because someone had been watching too. Not Daniel, Blake. Her name was Margaret Cole, and she was the chief executive of Meridian Savings. And she had spent 30 years in banking, learning to read the one thing the numbers could not hide, which was the shape of a lie. She had started as a teller at 19. She had counted other people's money through a barred window for 6 years before anyone let her sit at a desk, and she had never forgotten the smell of the drawer or the weight of a stranger's mortgage in her hands. She ran the whole company now, from an office 40 floors up, and the thing that people who feared her did not understand was that she had climbed all that way carrying one simple conviction, which was that a bank is nothing, nothing at all, if the people who trust it with their money cannot trust the people who hold it. The audit of Blake's branch had been her order, not a routine review, a targeted one. Because 18 months earlier a number had caught her eye, a return on deposit figure at one suburban branch that was just slightly too good, too clean, too consistent, the way a thing is too clean when someone has been wiping it. She had said nothing. She had watched. She had let the auditors take their time, because Margaret Cole understood something about patience that Blake, for all his cleverness, did not. A careful thief believes that no one is looking because he has never been caught. He mistakes silence for safety, but silence is not always safety. Sometimes, silence is a woman on the 40th floor, watching a number, waiting for you to make the one mistake that patience always draws out of a frightened man. And Blake, by planting that bag, had made it. The falsified withdrawal was clumsy. It had to be, because he had done it in a hurry, spooked by the coming audit. He had pulled $9,000 against a paper that did not hold up, meaning to bury the loss under the story of a thieving courier. And when the courier failed to steal it, Blake had not stopped. He had gone further. He had altered the vault logs to place Daniel where Daniel had never been. He had leaned on Perry to forget. He had built his story on the belief that a poor man with a suspension would either take a settlement to go quietly or would rage and make himself look guilty, and either way would go away. He did not count on Margaret already watching his branch. He did not count on the auditors when they arrived that Wednesday, being far more interested in the vault logs than in anything else, because a discrepancy in the deposit records had already flagged that exact vault on that exact evening before Daniel's name was ever spoken. And he did not count on the cameras. The branch had 4 security cameras. Blake knew this. Blake had, in fact, edited the footage from the lobby camera, the one that would have shown Daniel returning the bag, snipping out the 90 seconds that proved a courier had done the honest thing. He was good at it. The cut was nearly seamless. But there was a 4th camera Blake had forgotten. It sat above the rear corridor, near the vault door, an old unit that fed to a separate legacy system nobody had migrated when the branch upgraded 4 years back. It recorded to a hard drive in a closet that Blake had never once opened, because as far as Blake knew, it did not exist. And on the evening of that cold Thursday, before he ever walked out to plant the bag behind the drop box, it had recorded Blake himself, coming out of the vault, a zippered deposit bag in his hand, looking left and right down the empty corridor, the way a man looks when he believes himself unwatched. Truth walks slower, but it gets there. Daniel knew none of this. Daniel knew only that it was Wednesday night, that rent was due the next morning, that he had gone to 3 temp agencies and a warehouse and a moving company and gotten the same answer 4 times, which was that they would call, which meant they would not. He came home in the dark with the worn jacket zipped to his chin and $41 still in the account and a knot in his stomach the size of a fist. Ellie was drawing at the kitchen table. She looked up when he came in, and she read his face the way children read the weather, instantly and completely, and she put down her crayon. "Daddy, are you sad?" He wanted to lie. He was so tired of lying, of smiling the way Blake smiled, of pretending the world was smaller and safer than it was. But he looked at her, and he found he could not put the truth on her either. She was 6. Her job was to lose teeth and color skies on the ground, and believe the tooth fairy always came. His job was to stand between her and everything else, for as long as his body would let him. "I'm just tired, Bug," he said. "Long day. You can have my cookie." She pushed it across the table. Half a cookie. The good half. "It's the kind you like." And Daniel Reyes, who had not cried since the hallway with the buzzing lights, had to turn and put the kettle on so his daughter would not see his face. That night, after Ellie slept, Daniel did the hardest thing he had done since the funeral. He sat at the kitchen table with the shoebox, and he wrote a letter to his landlord, an honest letter, explaining that he had lost his job through no fault of his own, that he was fighting to clear his name, that he needed 2 more weeks and would find a way. He did not beg. Grace would not have wanted him to beg. He simply told the truth and signed his name and set the letter by the door to deliver in the morning, and then he sat in the dark for a long while, in the warmth that rose from the dryers below, and he did not know how a man was supposed to keep standing when the ground kept moving. He almost did not answer the phone when it rang the next morning. It was a number he did not know, and every unknown number lately had been another door closing. But he answered, because Ellie was at school and the apartment was too quiet, and a woman's voice on the other end said, "Mr. Reyes? My name is Margaret Cole. I'm the chief executive of Meridian Savings. I'd like to speak with you, if you can come in this afternoon. Downtown. My office." Daniel stood very still in his kitchen. "Ma'am, I've been suspended. I was told not to come to the branch." "Not the branch, the corporate office." "And Mr. Reyes." A pause, and something in the pause, something steady and warm that he had not heard from anyone connected to that bank. "You're not in any trouble. I want to make that clear before you drive all the way down here worrying. You're not in any trouble at all." He wore the jacket. Of course he wore the jacket. He drove downtown and parked in a garage that cost money he did not have, and rode an elevator up 40 floors, with his heart going like Ellie's little fist on the radiator. And a woman with silver gray hair and a plain dark suit met him at the door of an office, with a window that showed the whole gray city spread out below, the river a thread of dull light running through it. Margaret Cole shook his hand. She had a firm grip and tired eyes, and she looked at him the way people almost never looked at him anymore, which was directly, as if he were a person and not a problem. "Sit down, Mr. Reyes. Would you like coffee? Water?" "I'm all right." He sat on the edge of the chair. He kept his hands in his lap. "Ma'am, I don't understand why I'm here." "You're here," Margaret said, sitting across from him, not behind the big desk, but in the chair beside his, "because 8 days ago, you found a deposit bag containing $9,000 behind a drop box, and you brought it back. And because a man who works for me has spent the last week trying to convince a great many people that you did the opposite." Daniel did not move. He was afraid, suddenly, that if he moved, the moment would break and turn out to be a dream, the way the good moments always turned out to be. "I want to tell you what I know," Margaret said. "And then, I want you to tell me what you know. And between the two of us, I think we'll have the whole of it." She told him about the number she had watched for 18 months, the figure at one branch that was too clean, and Daniel gripped the arm of the chair without knowing he had reached for it. She told him the audit had already been underway before his name was ever spoken, and he felt his own thumb pressing white against the wood of it. She told him about the falsified withdrawal, clumsy and rushed, and he had to look down at his hands to keep them still, and could not. And then she stopped, because she had seen it, and she let the room be quiet for a moment before she went on. Gentler, the way you slow down for a man who has been running. "There is a camera," she said, "in the rear corridor, by the vault. An old one. It feeds to a hard drive in a closet that Blake did not know existed because he forgot it was ever installed." She looked at him steadily. "On Thursday evening, before he walked out to that drop box, it recorded him coming out of the vault with a bag in his hand, looking left and right down an empty hall. I have watched it myself, Mr. Reyes. There is no version of this in which you are the man who did wrong." Daniel listened, and he drew a slow breath that shook on the way out, and he pressed his palms flat against his knees, and still they would not be stilled. "He tried to give me the fall," Daniel said, and his voice came out rough. "For bringing it back. He did. I have a daughter. I know. Margaret's voice did not change, but something moved behind her eyes. I know you do, and I know it's the 10th, and I know what the 10th means when a man has been suspended without pay for something he didn't do. She reached to the small table beside her and picked up an envelope and held it out. This is your back pay for the suspension, and a reinstatement, effective today, and it is not charity, and it is not a settlement, and there is nothing for you to sign that costs you anything. It is what you are owed. I want to be very clear about that, because I have known a great many proud men, Mr. Reyes, and I can see that you are one of them. This is not a gift. This is a correction. Daniel looked at the envelope. He did not take it right away. Grace was in the room with him, in the frayed cuffs of the jacket she had bought him, in the stitches on the elbow he had sewn himself, and he thought about what she would say, and he knew that she would say, "Take it, you stubborn man. Take it, it's yours." And he reached out and took it. "Why?" he said. "Why go to all this trouble? For a courier?" And Margaret Cole was quiet for a moment, looking out the window at the gray city and the thread of the river. "When I was 19, she said, I was a teller at a branch in a town you've never heard of. And a woman came in one day to cash a check, an old woman, and I gave her $10 too much by mistake. And she counted it, right there at the window, and she looked at me, and she handed the $10 back. $10. She needed it. I could see that she needed it. In her coat and her shoes she needed it. And she gave it back. And she said to me, 'That's not mine, dear.'" Margaret turned from the window. "I have spent 30 years in this business, Mr. Reyes, and I have watched a great deal of money move through a great many hands. And I will tell you what I learned from that old woman at that window. Everything about a bank, everything, comes down to whether the person holding the money will hand it back when no one is looking. You handed it back. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. That is the only thing that has ever mattered." Daniel could not speak. "Blake was terminated this morning," she went on, gentler now. "The matter is with the authorities. You may be asked to give a statement. I'll see that you have someone with you when you do, so you're not standing in a room alone against a man in an expensive suit. You will not stand alone in that room. I want you to hear me say it." "Thank you," Daniel managed. It was not enough. There were no words that were enough. "Ma'am, I don't—" "Thank you. There's one more thing." Margaret stood, and Daniel stood too, and she looked at him with those tired, direct eyes. "Meridian is opening a new role. Operations integrity. It means checking the things that ought to be checked, quietly, and having the spine to say so when something is wrong. It pays considerably more than a courier's wage, and it comes with benefits, which I understand matters a great deal to a man with a child who needs an inhaler." She saw his face change and she nodded once. "Yes, I read your file, all of it. The job is yours if you want it. Not because I feel sorry for you, because I have been looking for 18 months for a man who will hand the bag back, and it turns out I already employed him, and I would be a fool to let him go on driving a route." Daniel stood 40 floors above the city in the jacket his late wife had bought him, and he thought of Ellie at the window with her breath fogging the glass, and the hole in the toe of her left shoe, and the aspirin bottle full of her small lost teeth, and the letter to the landlord still sitting by the door, and he found that he had to look away from the window because the whole gray city had gone bright and blurred at its edges. "I'll want to think," he said, because he was a proud man, and Margaret Cole almost smiled. "Good," she said. "I'd trust you less if you didn't." He took the job. Of course he took the job, but he took it the next day, after a night of sitting at the kitchen table doing his math one last time, and finding, for the first time in 2 years, that the numbers came out different. He told Ellie only that his work had gotten better, that things were going to be a little easier now, and she nodded the way children do when they trust you completely, and asked if that meant they could get the good cereal, and he said yes, "Bug, we can get the good cereal," and had to turn to the sink again. Blake did not go quietly, in the end. Men like that rarely do. He hired a lawyer, and he made his phone calls, and he told his version to anyone who would listen. And for a few weeks the story could have gone either way in the mouths of people who did not know better, because a lie in good shoes moves fast, and it is loud, and it gets to the party first. But the fourth camera did not care about any of that. The hard drive in the forgotten closet did not care. The 90 seconds Blake had cut from the lobby footage turned up on a backup he had not known to erase. And there was Daniel, plain as day, setting the bag on the counter, saying words a lip reader confirmed, "It's not mine to open." The skimming records, once the auditors knew where to dig, told 3 years of their own patient story. And one by one, the people who had looked away from Daniel in the lobby found their memories again. Perry first. Perry, who came to Daniel weeks later in the parking lot, red-faced and unable to meet his eyes, and said, "I'm sorry. I was scared. I have a kid too." And Daniel, who understood fear better than most, put a hand on the young man's shoulder and said, I know you were. It's all right." Because that was the thing about Daniel Reyes. He had every right to his anger, and he set it down anyway, the way you set down a stone you have carried too far. He had learned, in the hardest possible way, that there are 2 kinds of men in a corner. There is the kind who looks for someone to put between himself and the fall, and there is the kind who zips up his worn jacket and walks back toward the doors. He had made the second kind of choice, and he meant to leave his daughter with the memory of it, and that was worth more to him than anything else. The fall turned to winter. The maple outside Ellie's window let go of its fire and went bare, and the first snow came, and Daniel bought her new shoes, the ones with no hole in the toe, and he kept the inhaler full without lying awake over it. And one Saturday he took her to the good grocery store and let her choose the cereal herself, and she chose the one with the most sugar and the brightest box, and he bought it without even looking at the price. And that small, ordinary freedom felt like the richest thing in the world. He kept the jacket. Margaret had gently suggested, once, that the new role came with a clothing allowance, and Daniel had thanked her and worn the jacket anyway, the brown canvas going softer every year, the stitches on the elbow holding, and no one who mattered ever thought less of him for it. Ellie still burrowed into the front of it when he lifted her, pressing her face to the worn canvas. And it still smelled, she insisted, like Daddy. Margaret saw the jacket the first day he reported to the new office, and she said nothing about it at all, which was its own kind of understanding, because she was a woman who knew that the things we refuse to throw away are the things that tell you who a person is. Sometimes, in the years that followed, Daniel would think about that cold Thursday evening in the parking lot, the deposit bag on the passenger seat like a stone, the $41, the rent due, the hole in his daughter's shoe. He would think about how close a good man can come to the edge, and how little separates the ones who step back from the ones who don't. And it was never as much as people liked to believe. It was mostly just luck, and love, and one worn jacket, and the memory of who had chosen it. And he would think about how long it had taken, how the lie had gotten to the party first, and the suspension had come fast, and the shame had come faster, and for a while it had looked, from where he stood in that warm, small apartment with a letter to the landlord by the door, as though the truth might never come at all. But it had. Not running, never running, walking, in its own slow and stubborn time, down the long road, past the men in good shoes, and the loud, fast, easy lies, until it arrived, the way it always arrives, a little late and entirely certain. That was the thing he wanted Ellie to know, someday when she was old enough to understand it. Not that the world was fair, because it was not. Not that honesty was always rewarded, because it was not that either. Only this, which was the truest thing he knew, and the last gift he had to give her, worth more than the good cereal, and the new shoes, and the full inhaler, and everything else the world had finally handed back. Truth walks slower, but it gets there. Wait for it. Be the kind who waits.